My pleasure to ask you to turn off your cellular devices and anything else that makes noise.
Is it okay if I take photos for the Pegasus?
I think that is fine. Yeah. No flash photography, please. No, anyway. And I wanted to say thank you to co-sponsors of Rajiv's visit, including the Sophie Kerr Lecture Series. Thank you, English Department. Thank you to Phi Beta Kappa, and thank you to the Center for Environment and Society. If my story angers you, I am not sorry, states the speaker of Rajiv Mohabir's poem, To a Father Who Can't Accept His Son, which appears in his first book, The Taxidermist's Cut. That book concerns metaphors of hiding and revelation, particularly of a self that is not acceptable to a mainstream, and it aims to widen in the social realm our ideas of which bodies have value and what art can mean when it has liberation as its goal. Never mind, Mohabir writes toward the end of the book, do not feed the Father God obsessed with sin. It feels like Mohabir has thrown off the shroud of whatever that sin was in his newest book, Whale Aria, a copy of which I have here. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that? Yes. In his newest book, Whale Aria, which uses our scientific knowledge and cultural representation of whales to argue for a poetics and a humanistics of otherhood, informed by multiple ways of knowing and learning. Why must we slay the sea beast to recognize its beauty, the poet asks, answering in another poem, this is our new language, how we call out to destroy each other. Whale Aria argues that just because a speech system may appear unintelligible doesn't mean it is. The way that when colonizers oppose their meanings and sounds on a land and a people, there is a kind of erasure taking place, and that erasure is violence. If that story angers you, I am not sorry. But in Whale Aria, there's also such a call for unity, for recognition of the beauty in the world and in our humanity, if only we can recognize that, quote, some songs breathe you. Your body already knows. Or, as Mohabir argues at the end of another poem, we are stars bound into one psalm. Whale Aria weaves a story that contains anger at ecological and human violences, but also contains optimism that we can, through art and intellectual inquiry, transform each other and expand our empathies. Rajiv Mohabir is the author of 4 collections of poetry, including The Taxidermist's Cut, The Cowherd's Son, Cutlish, and most recently, Whale Aria. His memoir, Anti-Man, received the New Immigrant Writing Award from Restless Books, a Forward Indies Award for LGBTQ+ adult nonfiction, and it was a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award in Gay Nonfiction, the Publishing Triangle's Randy Schultz Award for Gay Nonfiction, the PEN Open Book Award, and the Guyana Prize for Literature in 2022. His other honors include recognition from Kundiman, the Northern California Publishers Association, the Massachusetts Center for the Book, and the Massachusetts Cultural Council, the the New England Book Awards, PEN America, and the National Book Critics Circle Award. He's also been awarded the Harold Morton Landon Translation Award from the Academy of American Poets, and the 2015 PEN Translation Fund grant for his translation of Lal Bihara Sharma's I Even Regret Night. He is also the editor of I Will Not Go, Translations, Transformations, and Chutney Fractals, just released last month and collecting some of the most exciting Caribbean writers and poets working today. Dr. Mohabir is currently an assistant professor of poetry in the Department of English at the University of Colorado Boulder. Our songs will pierce the dark fathoms, Mohabir writes in his poem, Why Whales Are Back in New York City. He invites us, Behold the miracle. What was once lost now leaps before you. Please help me to welcome Rajiv Mohabir to Washington College. Wow. Thank you. What a beautiful introduction, James. Just so incredible. Thank you for the blessing of your words. And thank you for inviting me into your wonderful community here. And many, unparalleled thanks to the Rose O'Neill Literary House at Washington College. Isn't this incredible? I'm so excited by reusable water bottles. And then also by your wonderful warmth and joy and also your willingness to come with me on this journey that I'm about to take you on. I'm going to start with reading from Whale Aria, and I'm going to end with some newer poems that might be forthcoming. Not in the next book, but in the book after that, hopefully, if there is a book after that. But to begin with, I'm going to read the opening poem from Whale Aria. And thank you for the people that designed that incredible broadside that you're about to see. Anyway, I'll give you proper thanks in just a second, or at the end of the reading, actually. So, I'm going to begin with this poem that I wrote called Dominion, and it begins with an epigraph from the book of Genesis, Genesis 1, verse 26, that says, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." Dominion. Let there be light skins and colored skins, one to rule the other. A mandrake quickens into greed grab, tears a page from Genesis. Clods of earth are clods of God. Clods of earth are clods of dendrites with dirt skirting the ribs. Memory of the untouched is the more beautiful object. From the streets, gashed bodies lament this justice. Burn-scarred lives owned by light. I strike a candle against ruin, against the separation of day and night. We're living through some dark times, and so this is my candle that I'm lighting in front of you all. The second poem that I'm going to read for you is called Boy with Baleen for Teeth. I am really proud of this poem, which is like a weird thing to say. But I remember the first time when I wrote it, and the first time I read it in public, I was like, ooh, this feels really good. So I'm going to follow that compass and read it for you. Boy with baleen for teeth. My father wished to cast me backwards cast and all, a wrong catch. Saffron amniotic dripping off my black whalebone gown. My baleen burst through pursed lips. When I smiled, Sunday's Lutherans gasped, then laughed off horror. He will outgrow it. I opened my jaws and sucked the plankton from their eyes. My father's pliers gripped my plates, and he etched the story of the son he wanted onto my keratin. I gouged out his letters and into the channels smeared India ink and plunged a fallen star into the abyss. Deep silence swallows the body. What a fool I was, drawn to any glimmer.
A whaler tore my dress, then stuck me with his iron after we kissed in a haze of shanties and Cuddy Sark. I want to taste any body that shines in the dark. Thunder pulsed from clouds in nested song, and I was rain too. Starved for seasons, breaching at dusk, a silhouette on a darker sea. For seasons, I was faceless, trying to swallow constellations, to roll a star map on my tongue. Once, when lunging into the moon, the sea showed me my face as I trembled mid-air. Stars shone through the holes of my body. Whew. You all really love the cover of this book, right? Isn't it beautiful? So, I'm obsessed with my ancestors, and maybe we all are, or maybe like in either like via positiva or negativa. Maybe we hate them, damn them, or maybe we like love them and honor them and make altars to them in our houses. But I was lucky enough to collaborate with a living ancestor to make the cover of this book. My mom painted this. I know, isn't that great? And so I told her, Mom, if you divorce my father, I will take you to Hawaii. So she divorced my dad, and we went to the Big Island for like 2.5 weeks. Yeah, and the best thing that you can do is like participate in other people's liberation, right? And with my mom, that was the case. And then she moved to New Smyrna Beach, and she became a painter. And I was like, Ma, I need a whale. I need a whale for a book. And she's like, what do you mean? And so we talked about this. And I was like, I just need a painting. Well, she painted me 6. And this is one. This is the winner. But the central conceit, or the one of the concerns of this book, is about taking a kind of poetic form that, in my human interpretation, that I can divine from the natural world around me. I say tongue-in-cheek, I took her to Hawaii. It's a place that I have a lot of connection to through my education and through my scholarship as well as my poetic works. I studied there at the University of Hawaii in Manoa, and I lived under Leahi. And one of the things that I'll say about this is that, living in an occupied territory like Hawaii was a political education on the run. And so, before I begin to talk about the whale song poem, which is a form that I saw in the ecology around me, I'm going to read a little bit from the land acknowledgement in the back of the book. This book began on the US-occupied Kingdom of Hawaii, the traditional Aina of the Kanaka Oiwi, who still practice aloha Aina despite American militarism, settler colonial, and American genocidal legislation. Illegally overthrown in 1893 with the imprisonment of Queen Liliuokalani, the constitutional monarchy was replaced by a military government who served the white American capitalists that sought to drain Hawaii of its resources. The people, despite occupation, practiced radical acts of sovereignty. I wrote beneath the gaze of Leahi in the sprinkling and gentle rains in Manoa, under the eye of Makapu'u and in the surf of Ka'ena. I am grateful for the Kai, the Aina, and the people whom I met there, who showed me the limits of my own American poetry and mirrored for me a practice of kuleana, of responsibility to our stories and our communities. In this spirit, I offer this poem called In Praise of Hawaii as a traditional vandana. And at the end of this poem, you'll hear the language of my grandparents being spoken, that I will not translate. In praise of Hawaii. From Leahi's emerald crater to Mauna Awakea's spout of I'iwi's crimson feathers, the glory of Her Majesty, Liliuokalani billows from summit to pyroclastic flow. Land still forged in the core, where Oiwi resist in dance, in kaloloi, sovereign hearts crowned in the verdant halo of Mount Kaala. हम समंदर से तोके देख सकी है, आपन अनुबंधन से मुक्त भई, प्रणाम हाथ जोड़ के, नमस्तस्ये, 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 namo namaha. And this was written in the form of what I'm calling a whale song poem, which is a poem that's derived from the way that marine biologists have decoded the song of the humpback whale. Did you know that humpback whales sing in units that are organized into themes that are then like sung in sessions that last, anywhere from 10 to 45 minutes and sometimes even an hour and a half? It's the most electrifying thing to go into the water and to hear them move you. It's like your body responds in ways that you didn't know a body could respond to sound that's entering into you with your body having a different compact with gravity and viscosity of air and ocean water. Anyway, I was so moved. And so using a study written by Eduardo Mercado and his team of researchers, in 2003 they published this article that broke it down for me, in which I saw a kind of pattern emerge that represented stanzas. Oh, and another interesting fact is, did you know that humpback whales in their songs rhyme? There's a book called Fathoms, The World and the Whale by Rebecca Giggs, who's also one of these people that have done this research too. And it's just a fascinating kind of thing to imagine. How can we use eco-aesthetics to train our own human proclivities? And this, for me, birthed the whale song poem. The first whale song poem that I'm going to read for you, I'm going to sing for you, is called Immigrant Aria. And it starts with an epigraph from D.H. Lawrence that says, from his poem, Whales Weep Not. There they blow, hot, wild, white breath out of the sea. Oh, another thing I should say about whales, because there's just so many facts, right? I mean, it's just I get overwhelmed, and I'm okay. But these dark bodies that cross oceans, that don't believe in national borders, that teach each other songs, that sounds like my family. When we came to the US, we didn't have the right papers, but things were different in the 80s and early 90s, and so I naturalized at 14, and so this is in reference to that. Immigrant Aria. To swallow new names like krill, dive. You have few tides before you return to motion. Once this shrine was the abyssal plain. Once empire shackled you. Once you answered to names like monster, dragon, spewing steam, fire bellowing in the furnace of your hide. A migrant captured for brown skin's labor. Somewhere inside the darkness, where bruised flame, a spirit hovers over the deep. Once before Adam named you illegal, you snaked, breaking into air. Spit out his poison, jaw clap the swell. With your aft fin's trailing edge, churn surface to milk in the beginning. You were formed with great light. This poet, Meidervan, a poet and friend, calls when people, after you come, people go, she calls it poetry moose. I love that. The next whale song poem I'm going to read for you is called Boy Not Boy. Gee, what could that mean? If you know, you know, I suppose. And it begins with an epigraph from the Rig Veda, which I'm not going to read for you because it's weird now politically to read anything as Hindutva-ish as the Rig Veda. I mean, talk about ancient poetry, sure, but the way that it's been mobilized in India today, I think, if I could put the epigraph upside down in my book, I would do that today. But boy, not boy. As a child, I lamented, "Drink from this cup, stitch, rip, sequins, and tear your petticoat." Carmine sari pleats into my grief's elastic I hid, which twanged and burst, strung too tight. What color sing broken strings? My whale myrrh tail stuck my throat, a tussa delight, too leviathan to hide. Now my dagger eyes lined in moon-cured coal, hurricane their bathypelagic coal. Hear my gourd croon and sigh, my tune, its own Veda. In the beginning, desire descended to an earth bathed in night. Seeking sun, I leap from aphotic zone to bring to the surface light, my hymn, a forgiveness to rise from fluke to breach. I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from a longer poem called Whale Story. The first one is called Cetus. And Cetus is the mythological sea beast in Greek mythology, and it's also a constellation. And this is a little pin of a whale constellation with a whale on it. And basically, this is one of the stories. I'm going to read two of them for you, one after the other. And this one is called Cetus. And it'll kind of explain a little bit of my obsession with beginnings. Andromeda, you hallucinate, awaiting the beast that swims to devour you. The cetacean's storm eye withstands the pressure of diving nose first into the abyss. Because pride chains the innocent to rocks for sacrifice, even if you survive betrayal by your mother to the sea god, how could you possibly return home? Your patria will strip away your kith, puncture your eye, should you dive, bound as you are for the tryworks. Or perhaps a savior, fair like chalk, will smite the whale into mere phantasm. You are obsessed with re-entering the womb once it spits you out. 3. Bake Kujira, which is a ghost whale. O phantom in calcium, queer apparition picked to the ghost. O wraith god of bone, is it due to microplastic, the hunt, or radiation that you rise up from the grave to unsettle rivers and tide, harrowing an intent to prophesy? Fish and birds, warped and misshapen, attend you. Plastic gouges their guts, rotting as midway albatross, drying conjoined as gray whales in Baja. Every living intestine fills with radioactive nuclides. O Kujira, O whale, forgive me. Forgive me my toothbrush. It's a pretty heavy poems. How y'all doing? Good. So I'm going to read the next poem for you. Let me check my time. Okay, perfect. The next poem that I'm going to read for you is called Vestigial Bones. What's really cool about cetacean life, or whale life in general, is that they were land mammals once that returned to the ocean, right? Kind of like this return to the womb that spits you out, literally the ocean. And I mean, how cool is that? How many people have dreams about flying? Yeah, I've never had a dream about flying. All of my dreams have been about being in the water. And my flying is flying over the coral reef. Right? But anyway, I just think it's really cool that there's some kind of communication that we have with this being where living on land is ancestral, but really being in the ocean is ancestral. And so what does that return mean? I guess we're about to find out. This is written as a chutney poem, which means that the chorus, or the first verse that you'll hear, is in Caribbean Hindustani. And I will translate that at the very end. Vestigial, whichever. जान से तू भागेला ई तोके निकलाई जे अंदर रहे वही तो हर जहाज नष्ट करे. The remnant of hind limbs, puppets and origin play, that strings baleen to terrestrial ancestors. Occasionally, whales sport hind limbs, as in Vancouver in 1949. A harpooned humpback bore 18 inches of femur, reaching its body wall. Disconnected from the spine, what is their function but to rend the book of Genesis into two? Why regard scripture and exegesis as legs and fluke, sure to fall away, and not eat beef nor pork? Why do I need Hindi in Hawaii as a skeletal structure, a myth to hook my Leviathan jaw? What you run from will swallow you. What's inside will splinter your boat. Do we know what Grindr is? It's 2024. We know what Grindr is. Speaking of whales. Wow. This next poem, for those of you who don't know, it's a geosocial positioning app in which you can find other thirsty people. No judgment. All praise. This next poem is called Inside the Belly. And it starts with an epigraph from Rudyard Kipling, who says, "Noble and generous cetacean, have you ever tasted man?" 1. The seaman James Bartley screamed as he slid down a sperm whale's maw in 1891. He was in the stomach for 15 hours, unconscious in the stench of digesting fish. He survived after his shipmates sliced the belly open and pulled his twitching body into bed, where he stayed for almost a month. If this happened today, he would take a selfie. According to the Jonah Tales, he lost his sight and his skin whitened. He wasn't holding any blade. 2. A black swallower can take a man twice as big as himself, his jaws distensible. Catching them by the tail, he walks them over to his mouth. This is the marine biology of deadly desire. By most imperial standards, in 1891, by the British East India Company, my biology is a metaphor. I am dark-skinned, for my family's Indian. As a child, I prayed to be white until my foreskin started to whiten. This is not the deep, so spotting men is not impossible. Cables crisscross the seafloor, a copper map. The internet is a type of black swallower too. 3. A humpback hums as it tongues me. He doesn't spit me out after I come in his mouth. I want to shed my skin for a white coat. I ride him into the starless cold water of the unnamed. His flanks toss me from the bow, make the scales fall from my eyes. 4. According to the Royal College of Surgeons, any mating is a death wish. A wish for whiteness is every white man you bed. Consider the bull shark that swallows the blowfish whole, or why you refresh your screen with the Load More Guys feature on the app. When it reaches the stomach, it endures the acid and inflates before chewing through the shark's stomach lining. Kipling's sailor placed a grating in the whale's pharynx to protect it from STIs, but you like to cast cowries. Stomach acid kills everything. Your stomach still lurches with each tritone ring. Which white man will you invite inside tonight? Let erase you. I don't actually have a list, but I could probably make you a list at the end if you want. The last poem that I'm going to read from this book is called Why Whales Are Back in New York City. And I want to give a special shout out to the designer of this broadside. Holy God. I'd seen it on social media before I came here, and I was like, this looks so hot. Oh my God. When I came here and I was like signing them, I was like, the paper, and just so in love with it. The images on it are just so wonderful. And the letterpresses here that have created the broadsides that you see in this house are so iconic. Holy God. So, with that, I'm just so astounded and humbled to be here before you and to think of this poem as living on this wall. I'm going to just cry, actually. But this is a poem that I wrote in response to the toppling of Confederate statues in the South by brown and black folks during the Trump presidency, and how, in fact, there was like this talk about people being deported. And in New York City, the people who would be deported, one of the largest immigrant groups is my ethnic community of Indo-Caribbean people, or people from the Caribbean who were brought there in the 1800s as indentured laborers. And so New York City is like one of those enclaves. And Singh's Roti Shop is a place when I lived in the city that I would go to a lot, not just to eat, but for like functions and to meet people and to hang out and to like plan with the Caribbean Equality Project, which is this wonderful organization that, works towards granting and helping asylum seekers in escaping situations and having some kind of financial success or ability in the United States, which is like profoundly aligned against asylum seekers and immigrants in general. And so this poem, and another thing, another whale fact. In 2016, there were sightings of humpback whales off of Queens, New York. One of the most polluted harbors in the world. Things had started to change. In 2016, that was a hard year. Why whales are back in New York City. After a century, humpbacks migrate again to Queens. They left due to sewage and white froth banking the shores from polychlorinated biphenyl dumping into the Hudson and winnowing Manhattan schools. But now, grace. Bodies of song return. Go to the seaside. Hold your breath. Submerge. A black fluke silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline. Now ice beats doors down on Liberty Avenue to deport. I sit alone on orange A-train seats, mouth sparkling from Singh's Roti Shop. No matter how white supremacy gathers at the sidewalks, flows down the streets, we still beat our drums wild. Watch their false god statues prostrate to black and brown hands. They won't keep us out, though they send us back. Our songs will pierce the dark fathoms. Behold the miracle. What was once lost now leaps before you. Getting emotional reading a poem that I've read so many times. I have one poem left for you tonight, and it's a complete deviation from everything that we just talked about. So I'm also that person. I'm going to read for you an English to English translation of the song that you might know. I don't know. Maybe you know it. If you know it, sing with me. It's fine. It's cool. You can say that we are nothing, but you know the truth. I guess I'm the fool, with our hands out like an angel from the car sunroof. But you don't want to call it love. You only want to be the one that calls me baby. Boys and boys, shoot another shot, trying to stop the feeling. You can say it's just the way you are. Make another excuse for the stupid reason. Good luck, babe. Good luck, babe. Oh my God, I love this. Thank you. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. And so, in English to English translation, that's a cool thing to do in the world. Did you know you could do this? I did not fucking know that you could do this. And then Paul Legault, actually, who was a poet, he came out with, I think, this book in 2012. It's a book called My Emily, where he's taken Emily Dickinson poems and translated them into his own oeuvre or language. And it's such a fun and quirky book. And then I saw on Twitter, EJ Coe translated Beyonce's All the Single Ladies into her EJ Coe's own English. And there's politics around translating a black woman's song into poetry. So there's also this problematic that emerges here with my translating a woman's song into English into poetry. But this is called By Chance, Beloved. Between us, an agreement. The sun squared by window. Stop. I said it. What light breaks through a closed door? You want the field, so spread the seed and anther drunk on gin. No. Can a lie hollow a tree? Your river, my bank between us, need for the moon. Stop. Even if you didn't say, I need your water, how can I hide while the field thirsts? I told you. Thank you so much. Oh my God, and thank you for singing. Give yourselves a round of applause for singing. That was amazing. Oh.
Rajiv will answer some questions if you have them, and then we'll just need to repeat the question into the mic for anyone watching at home in their pajamas.
You don't see this shimmer at home, I'm sorry.
That's right. You need to see that in person. Yeah. Any questions?
What did the process look like doing that translation into poetry?
What does the process look like doing that translation of the song into poetry? It looks like a lot of play and being silly. I wrote it actually by a river, which is why the river imagery emerges in the poem. It was, I was at a farmer's market in Boulder, and I was sitting there with my friend, a couple of my friends, including Sarah Riggs, the translator of Atel Adnan. And we were just sitting and chatting, and it was in the time of when I first started to pay attention to what the lyrics were. I was like, oh my God. First I was like, this is a bop, right? This song is great. And then I was like, oh my God, she's singing about emotional entanglements with someone who's no, this is just for tonight. Oh my God. And I was like, I've been there. You know, like what would I say? I thought of myself as like, what if I'm adapting that play into my life? And so that was how I got to it. But I love image in poetry, and I think the image can do a lot of the work. But rhetorically speaking, the thing that does the most work in this poem is that epigraph that says English to English translation of Good Luck Babe.
How did you get into Wales?
How did I get into Wales? Well, I grew up in Central Florida. And so I spent a lot of time in the ocean, either on the Atlantic side or the Gulf Coast. And so I was like enchanted by sea creatures. I really wanted to be a sea creature. And it didn't help that like the Little Mermaid came out when I was like 8. And like as a young queer, I was like, oh my God, I totally identify with this like chimera, right? This half human, half fish thing. And I was like, I love this. So flash forward 20 years, I'm still obsessed. Although I'm living in New York City at the time, I start having these dreams of humpback whales, specifically, singing songs in the water. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, what is this? And so, and there's all these like religious stories. One of the things in the book that happens is I talk about the mythology of places that my family is from, places that I've been, where the mythology around being swallowed by a whale or like the whale life has been like really instrumental in my thinking. And in one of my dreams, I was swallowed, and I went down into the water. And the consciousness in a dream is like a strange thing anyway. But like mine was like both whale and human at the same time. And I was like, this is something. I mean, clearly, it's my subconscious mind telling me something. And I remember I went to go hear Mark Doty read, and he has these really beautiful dog poems, or a really beautiful dog poem. And he also, this was just when he read for us in that night a poem about the woolly mammoth baby that had been found in the tar pits, like a full kind of preserved thing. And I remember asking him, like, how did you approach writing this animal? Like, how did that happen? And he's like, well, what happens if the voice in the poem is the voice of the animal? And I was like, oh, bet, it's on. So I go home and I do that, and it's a miserable, awful poem. And I'm like, thanks, Mark. Fuck Mark Doty. No, great advice. No, I was just not ready. And I remember in Hawaii, when I was there, it was 2013. This all sounds so mystical and woo-woo, but I'm a poet, so goddamn it. I'm in the water, and I'm like swimming. And it was September of 2013. And I was just like, it's time to come out of the water and to write a poem. Came out of the water, and I wrote a poem about a whale. And then I just didn't stop for 10 years. So, I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
A little too well, probably. Thank you.
Right. So earlier you said something along the lines, please forgive me if I mess up this quote. We're entering dark times, this is a candle light for you. What role do you see poetry kind of playing in like today's society, and as we're like going into some uncertain times, like what role do you see poetry kind of posing there?
This is a very important question. What role does poetry have helping us navigate through dark times? I don't know. I mean, sometimes, like, don't we go between, like, oh, poetry is the best thing, and then poetry is useless? I believe both of those things at the same time. But if there's one lesson, and the only lesson that I'll ever take from my conservative upbringing, and when I say conservative, I mean Christian, punitive, God with the book of life kind of thing, is that God calls us each according to our ability. And maybe that's just a myth that I'm telling myself, to make it so that I can think that there's some part of my spirit that can survive. And I also think about the work songs that, like, my family comes from. One of the things I didn't say in this reading, like, I mean, I kind of did, but so on my dad's side, I'm second generation literate, and so on my mom's side, I'm third generation literate. And so what that means is that, like, the ways in which we were taught to become human were passed down through song. There was a song for everything. And so in that way, maybe poetry did form me. And maybe this is my dreaming up of the next thing that I can form. And maybe that'll be filled with light. And grinder poems. Which is light. I don't know. I'm unsatisfied with this answer myself. So, thank you for the question. What do you think?
I would say, I think for me at least, poetry kind of is a means of expression in saying the things that typically we're not supposed to say. It's kind of like a little jab almost of sometimes people don't want to hear things, but it's saying them regardless.
Like the poem is like kind of the golden compass.
Sort of. It's like a reclamation almost. Like, oh, if I can't say this, just plain, I'll write it instead.
Did we hear it back here? Okay. And at home, it was, could you say that again?
But into the mic, everyone.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, we're gonna do this.
Actually?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll see you here.
Right. Yeah, basically I just said if you can't just come out and say it, write it. If you're not supposed to say it in public, if it's something taboo you're not supposed to, just go ahead, do it, write it. Reclaim your voice. That's what it means to me.
Thank you.
So thank you.
I think that might be a good place to end. Can we thank our guests one more time? We have books for sale out there, and broadsides as well. So please buy books and broadsides, including we have copies of Anti-Man as well as Whale Aria. So Rajiv will sign here on the couch. Our next event, Diane Seuss, Pulitzer Prize winning poet Diane Seuss, will be on Zoom with us talking about poetry and mental health. Seuss was, before she was a poet, she was a social worker and therapist, a private practice therapist. So she's going to talk about poetry and healing. I know I need that right now. So that'll be Monday, 6 p.m. on Zoom. If you want to register for it, you can just go to the Lit House events page, washcall.edu/lit events, and you can find it there. And then also next Thursday, the first year reading will happen. And that is always filled with hope, right? To hear first year students in their original work. So that'll be here at 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 21st. Thank you all for coming out. Ha ha. Little gay joke. I'm not landing at all tonight. Not even once. Anyway, thank you all for coming out. Have a good rest of your evening. Bye for now.